Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Best Today podcast. I am so excited because today I am bringing a guest on to be in conversation with me on the podcast. Today I am talking with Kate of Naptime Kitchen. And if you do not know Kate, first let me tell you a little bit about her. Kate is the woman behind the brand Naptime Kitchen. And really what Kate does is inspire you to create a home that serves you, a place where you and your family can rest and call your own. And here's how I discovered Kate, actually, which is really a fun story. I'm on Instagram one day, and as usual, I see that I've been tagged in a few things, and I'll get to that. Usually when I see that I've been tagged in something, I have a designated time of the day where I'll go and say, okay, who's tagging me about what? But then I see like a slew of followers that begin to come and join, follow me. And then Kenya says the same thing for over at Best Today Instagram. And so I say, let me see what's going on. And what happened was Kate from Naptime Kitchen so kindly got on her Instagram and shared how she's been using the Best Today guide and how it has been a huge help to her. And of course, her audience wanted to know more about the person and the brand that she was referring to. And so she sent us a lot of followers our way to just learn whether or not we were, worth their Instagram time and space. But what I loved so much is that introduced me to Kate. I got to know more about the work that she does, how she helps women primarily to not only feel good in their homes, but also make things that might otherwise feel challenging, feel very doable and simple. And also what I love about Kate, and you're going to hear in this conversation, is inviting you, like I do here on the podcast and like I do through everything we do at Best Today, to create a life that works for you, for your season, honoring your season. And so I asked Kate to come and join me on the podcast to be in conversation about just that, like what is her take on how do you create a home that serves you, and to help us with some of those things that might make being in the kitchen, making meals, even thinking about meals, a little less stressful and less burdensome and feel like something that is a joy to do. And so that is exactly what you're going to hear, my conversation with Kate from Naptime Kitchen, as we talk about your home. I don't want to give away some of the smart things she said that I have down on my notes. I'm looking at my notes. And there were just so many great things that she said. I want you to listen to this episode. And just in case you're thinking, this is called Naptime Kitchen, I don't have children, please understand, as I always say when we have episodes that refer to parenting or mothering or children, that these principles that are taught can apply to your life and your season, whatever that may look like. So please don't disregard this episode. You're going to love it. You're going to love Kate. And we will have everything as far as how you can connect with Kate in the show notes for today's episode at besttodayguide.com/76. Now let's get to it. You're ready to hear from her. I'm ready to share this conversation that I shared with Kate from Naptime Kitchen. So I'm going to let you eavesdrop in on my conversation with Kate from Naptime Kitchen. Good morning, Kate, and welcome to the Best Today podcast.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
I'm so excited for this conversation. But before we get started, for those of our listeners who may not know you, can you tell us a little bit about who you are?
Yes. So I am Kate Strickler. I live in Charleston, South Carolina. My husband, Nate, and I, we have 4 children. And about when my oldest, who just turned 7, was a baby, I started Naptime Kitchen as an Instagram back when it was like just one little photo at a time, with the pre-made filters. And I was just found myself kind of bored cooking a lot, and just kind of started an Instagram to record that part of my life. And from there, it's really grown and morphed. And so now I'm here. So I do that, and also have a blog where I share like cooking and home hacks and just things that have worked really, really well for us.
I love that. And I too, it's so funny you said 7 years ago. 7 years is how many, I left the practice of law in 2015. And so I remember Instagram was a huge benefit to me being able to do that. That's how I got to grow my first business. And I just think about the Instagram of yesteryear with so much love and memory, because it's not the Instagram of today. So when you said 7 years, so you decided to just start sharing what you were doing. And so over the last 7 years, what has that how has what you did from the first post to what you're doing today changed, if at all?
I think the biggest ways it changed was because our family grew in that time. When I first started, my son was napping like twice a day. So I had ample time and he wasn't eating what we were eating. Like he was still eating baby food kind of thing. And so I could make elaborate recipes, take a lot of time, really enjoy it. And then as our children have grown, my part of my soul died because you realize that half the wonderful things you make they don't care about. So, and then also I feel like the time switched because I felt like I had a lot of time to cook. And so I feel like my recipes have really changed a lot more to what can you make without a ton of time, without a ton of brain power. And then as our family grew, our house did not grow. And so it was very much like, how do we make this space work for us? How do we function well? And I think I realized that a lot of the weight that we put on ourselves in our home is coming from, like, you see it in a magazine, you see this beautiful kitchen with a clean island countertop. And it's like, whose house ever has just perfectly clean countertops? I mean, proof of being in a home is stuff because you're living in the space. And so I really started to view our house as a tool, as opposed to just this beautiful thing that we just happen to live in, and more so like, no, this has to function beautifully for us. And it does not need to function for the people down the street. It needs to function for us. And so a lot of what I began to talk about and think through was just like, how do I make this bedroom work for 3 children sleeping in it? Or how do I make our entryway no longer this like just one beautiful table with a nice plant on it, but like a landing place for tons of shoes and book bags, just making it function for our family.
I love that. I love how you said, looking at our home as a tool and how it functions for us, and not how these shoulds I put on myself, how it should look, or how a home that's considered quote unquote clean should look. But actually, I think of a tool as something that's going to help me to do something that matters. And so how does my home function as that tool that helps us to do the things that matter to us? I love that perspective so much. I've never heard anyone describe their home as a tool. And so as you've done this and have kind of communicated to other, mostly I imagine women in your audience, on how to do this, what are some of the things that you've learned along the way that you had to unlearn or let go in order to really allow your home to be that tool that blesses your family and helps your family, as opposed to something that feels like a burden and, oh, I always have to do this. We are always trying to keep up with this. Mm-hmm. What are some of those things that you've had to kind of let go or unlearn?
I think probably one large one is just the actual way that a lot of homes were created when, so we live in an older, like 1940s home. And so there were actual spaces dedicated to things that just didn't function best for our family, like having a formal dining room area where it's like, okay, we don't have a ton of space. So designating a room with a very large table only for holidays doesn't really fit. Like we much more need a place to put toys, like a playroom kind of area. So I think the actual layout of a house, I think a lot of times we have to push through that boundary and be like, it's okay if I don't use this for what it was created for when the house was built. And then I think just a lot of it is having, not saying that stuff shouldn't have a place, but just being okay that your house is lived in. Just, I think, realizing that if somebody came over to my house and there was no toy in sight, they didn't see any toys at all, it's not a very good representation of my phase of life right now. So we have 4 children that are all under the age of, or 7 and under. And so there's just going to be things about our home in this season that in 20 years could look very differently, but just realizing that I have to stop pushing my home in a way that is not aligning with the season of life we're in. So a very easy example would be if you have like a toddler who's like learning to pull up and walk, you probably no longer have like a glass candle on your coffee table. Like you just are like, you know what, in this little season with a small toddler, I'm going to move that glass candle because I can't light it on the coffee table. anymore. So just kind of accepting, but I think not accepting it like, oh, this is so hard, but being like, you know what can we have on the coffee table? What does this season provide for our family?
Yes.
Our home, when someone walks in, I don't mean your home is in shambles in any way, but they would just know like the season of life that you're in and how your home works for you versus trying so hard to squeeze your home into what you think it should be in a magazine or things like that.
Absolutely. And that's one of a great principle that I think you're really illustrating from Best Today is to honor the season that you're in. And like, I love that you said, and honoring your season doesn't mean, oh, well, this is the season where we can't have nice things. I really like that couch I saw in Pottery Barn, but not this season. Not from that perspective, but from saying, this is the season we're in, and here's how we're going to live in it. And here's how we're going to celebrate it. And here's how our home is going to be a representation of that. Because this is we want everyone to feel, whatever that is in your home, joy, peace, comfort in this season. And as you were talking, I was thinking about, in our kitchen, on our wall, during COVID, when we weren't attending church, I was teaching my children's Sunday school, and I just found these free printables online of all these different stories, and they would do that as the beginning work, and they'd color it. And I was like, you know what? Let's put them up on the walls around the dining room. And so it's just plastered with coloring drawings from a 3-year-old and a 9-year-old. But it's all over the wall. And I actually really, really love it. Like really, really love it, because it's like, it reminds me of a time when we had to adjust, but we still were able to do the things that matter to us. And just when I walk in the kitchen and I see that, for me, it's just, I don't know, it just makes me so happy. And it's like taped up with washi tape. So it's like not framed, and we didn't send it off. Right. It's taped with washi tape. And my daughter, like, she loves that, like, okay, it's time to put it up, that she gets to put it up there. And, but I think years ago, I might've cringed at the thought of that, maybe on the refrigerator for a few things, but it really is a representation of like a unique season that we were in. And then also this season of like, you're going to see like coloring all over and like spread out over the wall. And it really, it is so meaningful to me, but I could see how, before really learning how to honor the season you're in and thinking your home should look, Instagrammable or, for the cover of some magazine, you would feel that. So I think that's going to free a lot of listeners to really think about, how is my home a real representation of what's going on in my life right now? Like you said, that doesn't mean like in shambles, but the toys can be out or the coloring pages can be on the wall. I think that's really refreshing.
Yeah. And I think if you do start to view your home as a tool, and if you think about people that use tools get used and tools get dirtied and tools have to be like cared for and replaced. If somebody buys a hammer and they just only look at it, it's never actually fulfilling the purpose of a hammer. And so for your home, when it gets dirty, when you have to wipe it down, it's like, well, you're using it. You're using the tool of your home. And so it's a natural part of the cycle. Like, yes, we're going to clean it up. It's like a cycle that your home goes through, which I think it almost like can have the mess feel a little bit like, okay, it's proof that we are using our home. The rooms are being used. So I think that helps me too. Just proof that we're living in it.
Absolutely. I love that. And so as you're creating or, using your home as a tool, what are some of those things that you found have been most helpful in teaching others about how to utilize their home as a tool, whether it's certain rooms, or certain tricks or tips that you've kind of learned that really work well for you? What are some of those things you've learned along the way?
Good question. Well, I think the biggest is really freeing people up to think about their own space, like really getting down to the nitty gritty of like, how would this best function for you? If you have a crock pot in your cabinet that's been in there for 3 years and you've never pulled it out, you don't have to keep that crock pot. Like, you can free yourself up or go put it in like a hall closet. Nobody said your crock pot has to live in your kitchen, your like valuable kitchen space. Because I feel like kitchens are a big one where few people actually have these massive kitchens with just tons of space and a big island. Majority of us are just trying to figure out where to shove everything and small pantries, everything like that. So I think just being okay with what you use the most, what needs to have, I do a course called the Home Reset where we do reset different parts of the home. And I love this course because it very much is not a home makeover. It's a home reset, like getting your home back to a place where it's functioning best for you. And then also we do very nitty gritty things like, let's open your spice cabinet and check the expiration date and see if you have curry that expired in 2013, just some very tangible things. But I think getting people to a place where they're really asking, how does this function best for me? What is the best use of this space for our family? And I think the beautiful thing is, again, going back to being in your season, it doesn't have to be forever. It could be like for the school year or really well for the summer. What are things that we need out in the summer that we don't need out any other time of year?
Yeah.
But in the summer, we need them out. Just asking those questions, I think is really helpful. I think for our family, some very like random but tangible things that we do is we keep all shoes by the front door. My children are small, so we still have pretty small shoes, but they have like that cube storage from Target, and you pull out a cube and all your shoes are in there and all of your socks. So your shoes and your socks are in your cube. So we never have to go back to your room. It's all by the front door. So that's something that we do in our house. And then we keep towels on the back porch because it kind of ends up that in the backyard is where the sprinkler will be. And we don't keep them out on the back porch in the winter, but in the summertime, towels are on the back porch. So you don't have to come inside wet in order to get a towel. The towels are already on the back porch. So those are two just like very simple. What do we need in this season?
Yes.
Even just for the next month, for the next 2 weeks, whatever it is, we put away book bags. Like we close them up, we put them in the top of a closet because I don't need them hanging by my front door for 3 months. We're not using them. So we put them away for the summer, just little things like that.
I love that. So many things. I was trying to take notes as you were talking. So how does this function right now? I love that because like you said, summertime, as opposed to saying, oh, like you said, the book bag's just going to hang right here by the front door for 3 months, but we don't need it. And I keep knocking it over every time I come in. And it's like, okay, you've realized that there's this thing that you don't need right now that can go somewhere else in a way. And then maybe there's something that needs to go there. Maybe right there is where you keep the pool fob for the pool or, things for going out and like the towels in the backyard. That is so smart and so simple. And it solves a problem. And I always tell people, listen to your complaints. What are the things you're complaining about? That's going to tell you that's a sign that this is a problem. And there's a solution for that. So I love just thinking about like, how do we set it up for what we're doing right now? I think a lot of times people are, again, not honoring their season by thinking about what the next season might be. And even something as short as 2.5 months where the children aren't in school or during the school year, or maybe in the winter or the summer, like literally seasons. Thinking, okay, how do we set that up? And what you could do is once you start doing that, documenting, here's what we do for our home. These are the things we change out for, just like people change out like the core. Here's how we change out the functionality in the summer. Make that list. So that way, when it happens, it's really easy, like you said, to do a reset. And I'm a big fan of a reset. We talk about that in Clean One Room also. So I love that you have this program that helps people to really get their home in a place where you said it's not a makeover. We're just resetting it so that it makes sense for what you need and you take it room by room. I love that. And I think that is how we can remove a lot of what feels like a burden around the house. Like, oh, I feel like my house should look this way, or I feel like we don't use this thing right now, but it's there, like a dining room. Right now, our dining room is like my second office. That's like our shipping station, because right now that's the season that my life/business is in. And I just think about all these different things. It was our playroom was /homeschool for 2 years unexpectedly. So, but it's really like transforming your home to fit where you are right now, I think will alleviate a lot of frustrations as well. And thinking about, what's the best use for right now? So for the person who's listening and they're like, this actually would really be helpful for me. How can they begin to start? What are some questions they could ask themselves? Or how do they begin to think room by room or in their home of how do I make things work for what is right now? What are some things they could do to get started?
I would probably start by asking, like, if you go to a room, like, what do you want to be in that room? And I think there's like big pain points. A lot of people have like the landing zone at the front of the house is a big area where it's like all of a sudden a lot of stuff is there, or the playroom. And then I personally am a big fan of starting, like, especially if you order things off Amazon, start with like Amazon boxes. Don't go out and buy a new system until you're sure. So if you're like, you know what, I think we might want to keep shoes by the front door. I like that thing that Kate said. I would just, the next time your like diapers arrive or something in a box or anything, any sort of box you have, find, like if you just have one, put it by your front door, try it out for 2 weeks. And then if you're like, this is amazing, then go buy something that fits your space or your aesthetic. But I think so often we can jump to a system and then we're like, oh gosh, we just spent $200 and it actually wasn't the best use for our space, or we, so give yourself time
test it out.
to test it out. I mean, you can have shoe boxes by your front door holding socks for a week. I mean, especially as you're going through it and your house, it is okay for your house to be in process. Just, I think it's kind of like exercise. Like your body is in process. You don't just like run one day and you look totally different. Like, exercise is a process and it is okay. And if somebody comes over to your house and sees the boxes, you can be like, we're thinking about putting our shoes by the front door. And they might be like, oh my gosh, that's so smart. We should do that too. I have noticed that when people come into your home, oftentimes they love seeing what is functional because they're like you. They need better functionality in their homes. Like you're probably actually in the same boat. They're probably not like, oh, well, we have a marble foyer and chandelier, so we don't have this issue that you're having. They're probably really just in your same phase of life and wanting to find systems that work as well.
Yeah. Okay. 2 things you said that, I have to write this down. It's okay for your house to be in process. And because a lot of what we are in is a process. I love that, and testing the system. Actually, as you're talking, so what we have by the front door is everyone has their main pair of shoes. So it's like Liam's play shoes, Zoe's play shoes, my shoes that if I need to run to the mailbox and just run outside just to slip on. And Liam keeps his boots there because he can put those on by himself. So he likes to have those by the door if he runs out when daddy gets home from work. But now as I'm listening to you, I'm thinking, what's one of the biggest tussles we have when it's not a time to wear the play shoes? So we go get your shoes. Okay, where are your shoes? Are they in your closet? One's in the closet, one's not. And I'm listening. I'm like, you know what? What if we did this cubicle? I know you're talking about the pull out, everyone, and we have their, because they don't have a ton of shoes. There's like play shoes, nicer tennis shoes, and then nicer shoes for like church and events. And what if I kept all of those by the door? And now we don't have that fight of why aren't your shoes in your closet? Because, where it is everyone has a space in their closet for all of their shoes. But I'm like, what if they're all at the door? I really like this. And I can keep like maybe, like I said, for me, a pair that I know I will wear a lot. I'm thinking that alleviates a problem of backing up, especially if you have upstairs, downstairs, because that's what it is. It's like, oh, we'll go upstairs and where's your shoe? That system may work even better, not only for me, but I'm thinking about for the younger people who, when shoes go off, somehow one is downstairs and one is upstairs when I've given you a place to put it. But, and maybe that's it because they have one place to put their everyday shoes, but then all the others are in their closet. What if I just give them one space? That in itself alleviates something. And I love that idea. So I actually might be taking that idea for myself. Because like I said, I just think about what's something that you have to repeat over and over, or to yourself, right? What do you keep losing or misplacing or wishing it was right here? One of my favorite blogs, Young House Love, actually, they talked about how John keeps his running shoes and socks in the office because it's right by the door. And I thought that is odd, but it makes sense because when he leaves in the morning, he doesn't want to fumble around. And so as I'm listening to you, that's another example of how you really make the house function for how you're using it. And that makes and then allow it to be a process. And I talk about this a lot when we're talking about creating routines. You're not going to get it right the first time, chances are, but it's you try it, you tweak it. And so test it out. And I love that you said, try it before you buy it, before you go and buy all these things. Cause that sounds fun, right? I'm just going to go get this whole new system from Home Edit and use it. And then you don't, but you spend all this money, test it out with what you have. And you're great about sharing like what you have. I just watched on your Instagram, you're talking about, using the lid of a shoebox in a drawer. And I'm like, that is the exact same thing as this $12 clear thing. It makes so much sense, right?
I went and looked at the $12 clear things and I was like, I need 4 of these. I'm about to spend a lot of money. I'm about to spend more than my makeup on these providers.
Right. And so you found a solution. And I love that so much because it removes also the excuses of, oh, I don't have a system to do that. You know what? Use what you have, because the whole point is to test the system and see if it works for you. So I love all of these things that you're saying. I'm so excited. So tell me, what's the most popular thing that like you shared this thing and it just blew everyone's mind and they were like, why have I never thought about this? What comes to your mind when you think of like the most popular thing you've shared with your audience in any area of the home or kitchen?
Yeah, I think, well, one is more like a meal planning principle. So I don't know if that is, it's going off of like a system, but a big thing that we talk about is the principle of, can we go one more day? And so this doesn't work for everybody if you just are in a routine where you really need to grocery shop on a certain day, which I would absolutely respect if that's just the way it needs to be in your home. But before we go to the grocery store, a lot of times we ask, can we go one more day? And in that, we usually end up making something new that we wouldn't have eaten otherwise. We use things that we would have just continued to sit, maybe expire, and then we end up just saving money. Sometimes we'll go like 4 more days of just, can we go one more day? Like, can we just go one more day? Well, we have this pasta and we have this meat in the freezer and we just end up pulling things out and using them, and we'll go days. And I think it taps into using some of your frozen vegetables that are probably like getting freezer burn in your freezer. So that is something that a lot of people in the Naptime Kitchen community do, is just asking, can we go one more day? And it really, you end up making weird meals because but I think a lot of times it like taps into a little bit of like creative genius where you're like, I never would have put those together and everybody liked it.
Yeah.
This worked and it's satisfying because you're saving money in the process, which is very good right now with the state of groceries in our country. Right. So that is something that I think a lot of people have enjoyed, is that. And then I personally do what I call a flexible meal plan, which is where I plan the meals. I kind of think through the meals for the week, but I don't assign them to a day.
Same.
And for me, that just helps. It gives me a little bit of freedom of, well, what if it's super rainy and cold and I had planned for like Caesar salad? I don't want to have a Caesar salad. And so we had, grilled cheese and tomato soup, like just moving things around, or it's everyone's having fun at the park and I don't want to leave to go home and cook dinner. Just that flexibility in our meal plan is another thing that is a lot of people have done.
Yeah, I love that. Can we go one more day? I think we're in that right now, just because I order groceries from one of our grocery stores, from Sprouts, and to get free delivery, I have to spend $35. And what I need, only the things I need don't come up to $35. So I'm just like, let's just see what we can do. What we have, we're almost out of eggs. And usually when we run out of eggs, that's the trigger to like order again. But I'm like, if all we need are eggs, what else can we have for breakfast? Or what else can I do? Or what can I make that doesn't require that? And it does save you money. You find those cans, that you like kept putting off to use, or the, random things, like you said, in your freezer. And so that's what we actually canceled our butcher box, because we realized, I did an inventory of our deep freezer and I was like, we have enough chicken to feed the neighborhood, because there was a sale like Black Friday and I still like was loading up on that, and I was able to cancel an entire box. So that saved us so much money just from living in the overflow of our deep freezer. And the only reason I thought about it was because our friends were moving and they needed to use some of our deep freezer space. And so I was like, let me see what I can do. And I was like, let me see what's in here. So I love that principle of, can we go one more day? Because it eliminates waste, it saves money, but it also, like you said, sparks some creativity and helps you to see like, we should probably stop buying this because it's always left over, which now, again, you can use that principle really with a lot of things. Can we go one more day? I love that a lot. I think that's a really smart principle. And I do the flexible meal plan. I don't call it that, but yeah, same thing. I'll create the meals, but not necessarily assign it to a day because I may think, oh, I'm going to feel like doing a roast, but then I'm tired. And I'm like, you know what? Or something happened and I didn't get it in time because that's something I know I need to have 3 hours for. And so we're like, okay, I'll save that for, and usually that kind of stuff I'll do on a Sunday anyway, or a weekend. But I love that flexible meal planning also is really helpful. What is your favorite thing outside of, maybe that is one of your favorite things, but what's your favorite thing that you kind of discovered and you're like, why hadn't I thought about this all this time? This is like genius. Do you have like a favorite thing that you've discovered around the house?
I think in terms of like we use our blender a lot. And I think that, I don't know if this is answering the correct question, but I think realizing that my children all love a smoothie and they all do not notice or mind spinach in a smoothie. And we are not having a salad at this point in our lives with these, the children are not, we are not having like spinach in our quiche. Like if they're going to have spinach, it's in a smoothie. And I think realizing that I could put a ton of things into a smoothie and I could serve them a smoothie and peanut butter and jelly and call it dinner. Like just that could be like a summertime meal. I mean, really, truthfully, peanut butter and jelly can be a summertime meal. I'm not saying you have to add a smoothie to that, but we probably use our blender at least once, if not twice a day. And a smoothie has just been like it's probably my favorite kitchen tool is just the blender, throwing things into it. We make we call it like purple smoothie or orange smoothie, just depending on like the children ask for them by like, can we have a purple smoothie
color? Yeah.
And just realizing like I can get so much into them that way. And I'm using frozen fruit, which is usually less expensive. I can throw in like some seeds, spinach. And I'm like, man, they are getting a complete nutrition package right here. Yeah. And that for a lot of times for us, we do that at like 10 a.m. in the morning when everyone just kind of needs a little activity. Just we're getting a little bored, especially in the summertime.
At Best Today, we exist to help women just like you be your best one today at a time. So each week on the podcast, we are going to highlight your stories and your voices. So let's see what's in the inbox today.
Happy Wednesday. I just wanted to tell you about a product I've been using. This is not sponsored. The person I bought it from probably doesn't know who I am, but I've been following Shante Grant for a long time. And before Alberta was born, I bought her Best Today guide, which is what I've been using as kind of like, it's not so much a planner as like prioritizing tool and a routine tool. And I really struggle with staying on task, figuring out what I want to do in a day. And so I've just been doing this for probably a month now and loving it. A few of the questions that like you write down your morning routine and then it asks like, what will I do for my mental and emotional health today? What will I do for my physical health today? And then you kind of put down, it's not meant to be a to-do list, but it's like results and outcomes. So it's trying to have you like think through your day with purpose. I've been loving it. You might not jump on board and like buy the product today, but following her on Instagram, and then also she has a podcast. Again, Shante, you've just been helping me. You really have been helping me with getting a lot in this brain on paper. So I just want to publicly thank you and let the world know that what you created is awesome.
So I thought it would be appropriate to share that with you today. That is a portion of the Instagram story that Kate shared with her audience to talk about the Best Today guide and how it has been a help to her. And it's what introduced me to Kate, and I am so grateful for it. I'm grateful that the Best Today guide is doing exactly what I set out for it to do when I created it. And if you want to get the Best Today guide in your hands, and you do, I want to invite you to go to besttodayguide.com today and place your order. Remember that your Best Today guide is also going to gift you your first month in the Best Today community for free. So not only are you getting this in your hands, but you're getting a community right there in your head and in your heart, a way to surround yourself with other women who are like you, trying to live a life of intention and make sense of all that's going on in your life, in your world, in your mind, in your body, in one place to help you. So I want you to go to besttodayguide.com to place your order today. And Kate, thank you again for just sharing how the Best Today Guide has been a help to you and sharing your knowledge with the Best Today audience, the Best Today podcast audience today. Thank you so much, Kate.
So, and I think a huge underlying principle for the way that we meal plan, the way I talk on Naptime Kitchen, is just grace, like having so much grace for yourself when it comes to feeding your family or even just yourself, because feeding yourself is one of the very few things that it actually is never ending. Like a lot of people work a job Monday through Friday, or just have set hours, but feeding yourself and other people is something it's like you don't take off Saturday morning. I mean, even if you go somewhere, you still have to go through the act of doing that, and you have to pay money, and you have, there's always an effort. There is always an effort when it comes to eating. And so giving yourself so much grace that you really never have a break from that, I just think is huge. I think taking breaks whenever you can, and by a break, I mean, you say, hey, my kids are going to have an Uncrustable and sliced apples for dinner. Like I have to figure out how to give myself breaks.
Yeah.
And that might come in the form of a meal that is just as simple as it gets. And so sometimes that's Chick-fil-A, but you can't do Chick-fil-A over and over else. You're just going to spend a lot of money. So just giving yourself utter permission to make the most simple meals that you need to. And again, I think a lot of the times we can have a peanut butter and jelly for lunch and think it's fine, but feel like you can't do that for dinner, and be like, no, you can. You can serve your kids peanut butter and jelly sandwiches and an applesauce pouch for dinner, and just take the break that you need, because you have to fight for breaks, because otherwise you're just never going to have them. You're never going to have them.
I love that. One thing I did, maybe like 6 or so months ago, is I said, we're going to have sandwich night. I think it was a day where I was just completely through. Like I was done. I was tired. I had taken food out, but I put it in the fridge, and I was like, how can I make this creative? So I literally just Googled a picture of like sandwiches, put it in a Google Doc, typed out all the things we had around the house, like the different fruits we had, snacks, and I made a menu. And I was like, here's the menu for sandwich night. Circle what you want. So it had like pretzels, grapes, blueberries, do you want your peanut butter and jelly sandwich toasted? Because you can toast it if you want, like a grilled cheese. Do you want a grilled cheese? And Zoe thought it was the coolest thing. She was like, can we do sandwich night every night? And I'm like, oh my gosh, not every night, but we can do it again. Like just taking what I was just like, we're going to do a sandwich. But I gave you options, and it felt like a menu, like when they would go, you could color on it. You circle the fruit you want and whatever. I just literally went in the pantry, said, okay, we have pretzels, we have puffs, we have, popcorn, which of these you want. And it was like getting to pick your own meal. And it was low effort, like low effort for me. And so that has become another thing that I keep in my pocket. So I usually don't plan for sandwich nights, but I always know it's there if I planned for something and I'm just like, I don't have it in me today. So it's one of like my nice safety go-tos. Or if I know a week's coming up where I'm going to need that, I'm like, this is going to be that day where I have like all day meetings and I'm, extroverting more than I would like to extrovert as an introvert, right? Then I'll have that. And they really love it. I think a lot of times the pressure comes from us. We're like, oh, that there's again, the perception of the home, perception of the meal. It's like fed is fed. And when you talked about the smoothies, first of all, do you have some of those smoothie recipes on your website?
Yeah. If you Google smoothie, there's probably 10 at least.
I'm going to do that. And we'll link to those in the show notes as well. But that's so smart because we used to go out and get smoothies on Fridays after school. And we hadn't done that in years because she hadn't been like in physical school. And so I started trying to make them, but I just never really stuck with it. And you're right. You can get a lot of, I try to sneak spinach and quiche. I do the mini quiche, but as soon as they see something green, they're like, I don't like it without even trying it. Cause you can't taste it once you like eat their little mini quiche. It's like cheese, eggs, bacon. And I toss them a little green, but it's like when they see the green, they're like, oh, I don't like this. You haven't even tried it, but that is a great way to sneak it in there. And so I'm excited to try all of your color smoothies. And we're going to just do that. We're just going to say, let's play it. We're going to like try new smoothies based on color. And I'm just going to go down your list. So thank you for that, because that really will be helpful, especially around dinner time. Again, summertime, lower energy, or we're just doing more things. And that's something that's quicker. So I really love that a lot about the smoothies on the blog. Put a star around that. Well, let's talk about a little bit more about the kitchen. I know you started out as Naptime Kitchen, but you talk about the entire home. What's working best for you right now in the kitchen in this season of life that you're in? And then maybe even with your students in your program or with your audience, what's working for them? Because maybe you have people in your audience who, aren't home with 4 children. What are the things that's working well for you and for your audience around the kitchen?
Yeah, I think a big one is when I go to chop any vegetable, I usually look and see like what else needs chopping and try and chop everything at once. I don't fear that if I chop a sweet potato and put it in a Tupperware for 2 days, it's going to dry out. I just live my life, just keep going. And so I definitely am like, if I'm getting out the cutting board, if I'm going to get out the peeler, if I'm, going through this process, what else could I possibly, even if I'm not cooking it, it's almost like prepping food in a restaurant, kind of like, what else can I prep right now? And then we actually do, I know a lot of people love to grill meat in the summer. We do a lot of meat in the crock pot at our house, namely because you can flavor it in a million different ways. Yeah. And then when you shred it, it just like multiplies. And so I feel like from a cost perspective, if we grill chicken, it's kind of like everyone eats a chicken breast, but if you put it in the crock pot, it's like it doubles in size, and then you almost get 2 meals worth. It's like they eat less when it's shredded, and it doesn't like kill the house in terms of heat. It's not like having the oven on at 400. And so in the summer, I love it because it like the hottest part of the day, at like 1 or 2, when it's quiet time at our house, I can just throw some chicken in the crock pot, and then at dinner time, it's just ready. Like it's cooked. We can be in the yard. I'm not having to actively do a lot. And we'll do that a lot with like rice in the rice. And I have a rice cooker. So it's honestly like a crock pot for rice. And so I can set them both. And it's like, I have nothing else that I have to do for dinner if the chicken's in the crock pot and the rice is in the rice cooker. And I feel like I get to cook at when my energy is higher versus at like 5 o'clock in the afternoon. Right. So I think the crock pot has really been a friend, especially I think if you are in a family that meat is a big priority, which it's really not. My husband, Nate, could eat pasta every single night. He just, he doesn't care. But if you are, and if that's something that's like, man, meat kills the bank a lot of the times, buying meat. So the crock pot, I think, is a great way. Like you were saying, I know you said you did a roast, just things that you can kind of shred. They just double usually. So that's a kitchen tool that I am loving. And then I think in the summertime, especially, I'm just having to be okay that our kitchen is just kind of constantly in use. Like it doesn't ever feel, at the end of the day, I can wipe the counters and kind of reset it. But throughout the day, it's just, I have to be like, this is a huge traffic area for our family. Yeah. And I just have to accept that we're in it constantly. We're doing dishes constantly. We're using things constantly. And that's just like part of the season. Unless we go out to eat a ton, we're going to be making lots of meals in the kitchen.
Yeah. So. I love to chop everything at once. I actually have some sweet potatoes I was like, I need to go in and make those. Cause I did that. Like once chopping sweet potatoes to me is like probably my least favorite thing to chop. They're so hard. So I chop them all and just like, and it'll remind me to eat them because I really like to toss them in the air fryer, and use them with breakfast as a side. And one of my favorite things in the crock pot is like a pulled pork like situation. You're right. It's something about that pulled pork. We can eat on that sometimes I even have to end up freezing it. Cause we've had this so many days. Right. Yeah. But it's so funny because it just something about it when you shred it, it lasts for ever. It really does. And you
And
can
I
do so
feel
many
like,
different things with it.
yeah, you can have like it with rice. And then the next night you can put some barbecue sauce on it, put it on a sandwich.
Exactly.
Like you
Exactly
can do
what we do.
tacos. And so
Mm-hmm.
I feel like, I just something about shredding meat, any meat that you can shred. I'm like, this just works. I don't know what it is. So I guess especially if you're feeding a lot of people and you're like, we just
Mm-hmm.
keep killing it in the meat department with our
Mm-hmm.
budget, maybe pull out that crock pot, dust off that crock
Yeah.
pot.
I'm going to try that with chicken. The only time we do that is when I make chicken taco soup, but I never thought, let me just do some chicken breast in there and do the same thing that I would do when we do the pulled pork. Cause that's what we'll do. We'll do barbecue sliders for a little bit. Then we'll do taco bowls. And then, like I said, it lasts for so long, just one big thing of pork. So
Yeah.
I love that so very, very much. That was something else. I was trying to like write as you were talking. What are some of the things that shift, if anything, as you head back into like the fall and school starting? Because we talked about some of the things you do for summer. Are there any things around your house that shift when we're headed into like back to school season?
Yeah. I love when the weather gets colder because I personally love all of those warm meals. I could eat chili for like 5 days in a row and just be so happy. I think we just transition into a lot of slow cooking meals that are served warm that I love. But I will say, I think that the time kind of, it depends on if you're working or not. I think if your children are in school and then you kind of have that peace and quiet at home, for you, the fall might be when you're like, what are some great meals that I'm going to have the time all of a sudden to make? Or if your children are in school and sports are starting and you're working, fall might be when you're like, no, this is when I'm using my Instant Pot. Like this is when we do not have a lot of time. Summer is more when we can like slow cook something. So I think it really depends on the season of life that you're in. But personally, I think I love in the fall. I actually put a lot of emphasis in general, but especially when my kids go back to school, on lunch for myself. Yeah. So when my kids go back to school, I usually eat a fabulous lunch every day. I make a really good, and I might make something and just to eat it for 4 days, but I'll make like chicken curry and eat it for 4 days, or get like great arugula and a good cheese and make a fabulous salad for days in a row, because I just have the like time to sit and eat and really enjoy my food. Whereas when we're all eating dinner, and we have a 7-month-old, so it's just very chaotic. Half the time, I don't even feel like I'm tasting what I've made. I'm just going through the motions. So I put a lot of emphasis on having a delightful lunch.
Yeah.
For me, like for my own humanity. And then dinner is way more like, what's something that everybody likes? The kids have been in school. They're probably hungry. What is a good, filling, warm meal? But lunch is for me.
I love that. I love that principle of understanding what's for you. And it can be different. Like that's your meal that you can sit and savor, because dinner is, and breakfast might be a little bit more hectic and you're trying to feed you and multiple other mouths at the same time. You said lunch, and immediately I said, I have to ask her this question, because I'm in this stage right now where my youngest just started school for the first time, and I haven't had to make lunches in over 2 years because of COVID and we've been virtual. And I'm just like, and he does, and I just am like, I can only make so many peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. So we're talking about that. And he will not eat, like I've tried the deli meat, like sliced, I've tried the chicken and the crackers. What are some things that are helpful for those of us who have to make lunches for the children people?
So we usually make 3 days at a time. So that's the first thing I would say is we buy the Ziploc Tupperwares that have like one big compartment and then two smaller, and they're not expensive. You get them at Target, and I think you get a 2-pack for like $4. So, and that's like, they last. We've had them for years. So we just make lunches for the girls. John Robert gets lunch at school. But we will make like 6 sandwiches at once, put them in the Tupperwares and put them in the fridge. Like their lunches are ready made in the fridge. And we do 3 days. We do Monday through Wednesday. And then on Wednesday, we make Thursday and Fridays. But we really alternate between peanut butter and jelly, a yogurt, like a yogurt container, and cheese quesadillas are very popular. And I just put a tortilla with cheese in it and I microwave it for 30 seconds. And then I'm not like frying them quesadillas. I'm just
Oh.
microwaving cheese in a tortilla. And then a very popular one for my kids is a turkey cheese roll up where I just spread cream cheese on the wrap and then you roll it with turkey and the cream cheese like glues it.
Mm-hmm.
And so it doesn't come undone. They love cream cheese. So that is a popular one in our house.
Do you wrap the quesadilla in a foil to keep it warm or they'll eat it cold?
Oh no, they're just eating that thing cold.
Okay.
I mean, I'll make it on like a Sunday and on Tuesday they are eating
that's right.
a cold cheese quesadilla that their mom made on Sunday, but I don't think they know any better. They're not, they think it's great.
Yeah. I'm trying to retrain because Liam has been home his whole life.
He's had some good lunches.
He's used to going back for seconds. And I was like, oh no. And we get the school calendar, but so far I'm like, I don't think he'll eat any of these things just because he's just gotten so used. And it's just going to be a process of learning new things. I'm sure he'll at some point see something that he thinks looks good and wants to eat it for school lunch. But I'm just like, how do I do this when it has to be good cold? And there may be a microwave. I'm not sure. I haven't even asked, but I just feel like that's a whole nother layer because he would probably have to use it himself. So that's helpful to think. He does like cheese quesadillas. I'll just have to see if he'll eat it cold. Or even because I think we had some hot dogs left over from Memorial Day. We eat those like 2 holidays out of the year and he loves them. And I just warmed it up in the morning and wrapped it up real tight in aluminum foil in hopes that by the time he unwrapped it, it would at least be warm.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so that's really helpful to think through. I like that you make them ahead of time.
I bet if you were like, he just does not like it cold, if you just made it in the morning and put a little foil, it wouldn't be cold at lunch. I mean, unless you put an ice pack in there. Yeah.
Yeah. I put the ice pack on the bottom and then we have like the little Bentgo box on top. And then I'll put the quesadilla on, or the warm thing on top so that it's further away from the cold pack. I may try that, but I had to ask you about lunch because I figured she has this lunch thing figured out. I just know it. And you do. I love that system.
Yeah. And I think the beauty of lunch is that you're not there to hear their complaints. Yeah. And so I really think half the time they just eat it. You're not there for them to give their opinion on, and they're hungry and they just kind of eat it. It is nice. It's a meal that you make and you don't get that feedback in your face.
I love that. And I always pack fruit because he loves fruit, but I'm like, he can't live off fruit. Mm-hmm. Excellent. Well, thank you so much. I'm like looking at my sheet of notes that I have been taking just from listening to you, talking about the home as a tool, talking about meals. Is there any takeaway that you'd like to leave with our listeners who is listening and either trying to figure out how to make mealtime work, whether it's for her and her spouse, children at any stage, who's just struggling to make that work? I'd love to hear what you have for that person, like one place they can start. And then also a second thing is the person who's trying to like, okay, I like this home as a tool. What's one thing I can do maybe this week or this weekend to really start thinking about that? What would you leave for them?
I think for the person that's struggling with eating, I would just say start with what meal is your biggest pain point. Because I think we tend to put a lot of emphasis on dinner, but there's really that is just purely cultural. There's no like thing that's like, okay, in your body, dinner is way more important than what you ate for breakfast. And so picking one meal and just being like, how can I focus on this one meal and making it better? Because if you try and think for streamlining every part of your eating, that's 3 meals a day, that's 7 days a week, that's 21 meals. And that's a ton of decision-making on your brain. So I would just be like, what's the biggest pain point meal? And just start with that one. Don't worry, like keep on keeping on with the other 2. Everyone's going to be fine. And start there, like start very like small with what you think needs to change. And then I think for the home as a tool, I would say my biggest tip that is very tangible and free would be to start by just decluttering. If you're kind of like, I don't even know where to begin, I don't know how to organize these things, my first thing would always be, what do you need to get rid of? Because there's no sense in organizing things that you don't need.
Yes.
So
absolutely.
And I think decluttering is free. It is so satisfying. There's just this rush when you're like, oh my gosh, I have space again. And so that would probably be where I would start before you buy a thing, before you set to organize a thing, just like, what in this drawer are we never using that I bought because I thought that's the kind of person I was, and I'm not.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, absolutely. I think some of the hardest things when I'm cleaning out when I purge my closet, especially as like my lifestyle has changed from working outside of the home to in the home and working for myself, is like, but there's still tags on it. But Shantae, you haven't worn it, but there's still tags on it. And it's just like, get rid of it. So I think that's a fantastic place to start, and it's free. Where can people connect with you, learn more from you? We're going to link to all of these things in the show notes to today's episode, but where can people connect with you? Because now everyone's like, I have to have more Kate in my life. Where can they do that?
Oh, thank you. So I, on Instagram, I'm at Naptime Kitchen. I'm naptimekitchen.com. So everything is very, very easy to find. Just Google Naptime Kitchen, and I believe I'll be the thing that shows up. So
yeah, I'm going to get those smoothie recipes. I'm very excited about it. Thank you so much, Kate, for sharing your time with us today and sharing your wisdom. I mean, I'm looking at my notes. I think the home as a tool blew my mind. I love that, just that way to think about it. Really, I think it's going to help a lot of listeners who are listening right now, and to test the system and know that it's okay for your home to be in process. We so want the end result all the time that we forget about the beauty of the journey. And I think that's just really key. So thank you for spending time with us today on the Best Today podcast.
Yes. Thank you so much for having me. I loved it.
Thanks. So good, right? I'm going to tell you some of the things that I have written down as she was talking, and I was trying to take notes so that I could remember to bring them back up, and things I would just wanted to remember. It's like, how would this best function for you? Thinking about what you use the most in your home and how you use it. If you don't need a formal dining room, what can that be to serve you and your family, or you? Can that become an office? Can that become a place where you exercise, where you meditate, where you write? Can it become a place just full of plants? If that's something that means a lot to you, how can you make your home yours? Because it is in fact yours. And it does not have to be, picture perfect ready, whatever that even means, for a magazine to walk in the doors. It doesn't even need to be what you think other people think your home should be. In fact, that's then not your home. It becomes theirs. And because the places where we live are just such important environments that fuel us, that give us a place of safety and rest and refuge at the end of a day, at the beginning of a day, I want your home to reflect you and the life that you desire and the current season that you are in. I love also how she talked about testing the system, and it's okay for your home to be in a process. Maybe hearing that also freed you to understand that it's okay for you to be in process. So go back, mark this episode if it's one you want to come back and listen to. Take notes, take the things that were helpful for you, and then do something with it. And as always, share with us. Let us know you're listening by either leaving us a comment on the show notes at besttodayguide.com/76, or texting us at 404-737-1002, or make sure you tag Kate if you're going to share on Instagram at Naptime Kitchen, and tag us also at the Best Today brand. And lastly, I want to share this. If you need some help with figuring out where to start with decluttering in your home, I want to invite you to go to cleanoneroom.com or go to besttodayguide.com. We'll link to it in the show notes under online programs. Our Clean One Room program will teach you how to clean each room in your home one room at a time, and how to create that reset routine that Kate was talking about. So you can go to cleanoneroom.com or go to besttodayguide.com and click on online programs, and you will find it right there. That will be a huge help to you. And then if you need help with routine, you always know Right Now Routine, our number one program that teaches you how to create realistic routines that work for your life. Right now, we'll link to both of those in the show notes as well at besttodayguide.com/76. We'll link to Kate and her Instagram and website, and where you can learn more about her offerings at besttodayguide.com/76. Thank you for being present with me for this week's episode of the Best Today podcast. Until next time, remember, you are capable and worthy of being your best one today at a time, and you have everything you need to have everything you want. So go on, shout it out as you live it out. This is what my best today looks like. If you enjoyed this week's episode of the Best Today podcast, you are going to love the Best Today Guide. Our Better Than a Planner guide teaches you how to get clear on what you want, identify your self-destructive habits and behaviors, and intentionally create space to prioritize yourself every single day. Don't go the journey to being your best one today at a time without the Best Today Guide. See inside its pages and order yours today at besttodayguide.com. Even better, when you order the Best Today Guide, we gift you with your first month free inside of the Best Today membership. So what are you waiting for? We're giving you everything you need to trade busy for intention. Go to besttodayguide.com and order yours today and join thousands of women across the globe proclaiming each day, this is what my best today looks like.